Okay, picture this. You're in a sweltering room with 11 other strangers, and you have to make a decision. A guilty verdict? That means the electric chair for a young man accused of killing his own father. 11 jurors, they're ready to convict. But one man, juror number 8, he just won't raise his hand. He's the single holdout, the only thing standing between this kid and a death sentence.
And on the surface, you'd think this was a total open and shut case. I mean, the prosecution laid out a story that just seems flawless, no holes. Every single piece of evidence points right at the defendant.
And it's not just the physical evidence either. You've got witnesses who are absolutely certain about what they saw, what they heard. Their testimony, it paints this incredibly vivid and, frankly, damning picture. A guilty verdict doesn't just feel likely, it feels completely inevitable.
So why did one juror refuse to raise his hand? I mean, what could he have possibly seen that the other 11 missed? It's that one act of defiance that becomes the spark for one of the most intense dramas ever written. And really, it forces all of us to ask a really fundamental question about what justice even means.
All right, so let's get into it. To really understand what's going on, we have to look at the mountain of evidence the jurors were facing. I mean, to see why 11 men were so convinced, we've got to build a prosecution's case piece by powerful piece.
So this is the prosecution's whole philosophy right here. They're saying, don't look at the individual grains of sand. It's the whole mountain that matters. And this isn't just a movie thing. In the real world, a Supreme Court case, Holland v. United States, basically said the same thing, that circumstantial evidence can be just as strong as direct evidence. It's not about one single thing, it's about how everything comes together to tell one undeniable story.
Okay, so just look at how this all stacks up. The alibi? It's a bust. He says he was at the movies but can't even name the film. The weapon? He bought this really unique knife just hours before the murder. The motive? He's got a history of violence. And then you have the witnesses, one who heard it, one who saw it. Now, any one of these on its own, maybe you could explain it away, right? A forgotten movie, a similar knife, but when you pile them all together like this, it creates this incredibly compelling story of guilt. It feels almost impossible to argue with.
But here's the thing. A compelling story isn't the same as cold, hard proof. So how do you even begin to challenge a case that seems this airtight? Well, it all starts with one juror, and one incredibly powerful legal concept.
Reasonable doubt. This right here is the bedrock of the entire American justice system. And we're not just talking about any old standard. This is the highest bar we have in our legal system, period. It's used specifically for criminal cases where someone's life or freedom is literally hanging in the balance. And this is key. Juror 8 doesn't have to prove the kid is innocent. No, his job is just to find one broken link in the prosecution's chain of evidence. If he can do that, the whole case just falls apart.
And this is the line that changes absolutely everything. He's not pointing fingers, he's not coming up with some wild counter theory. It's just a simple, powerful admission of uncertainty. It's the whole strategy in a nutshell. Just to question the absolute, rock-solid certainty of the other 11 guys in that room.
So how reliable are eyewitnesses? Really, this is the first link in the chain that gets a real hard look. And it's the one that seems the strongest, right? The people who swore they saw it, they heard it. But the truth is, human memory is a really fragile, really complicated thing.
And this number just drives home the real-world stakes. I mean, this isn't some theoretical debate. The Innocence Project found that a staggering 69% of wrongful convictions that were later overturned by DNA evidence, they were caused by eyewitnesses who were mistaken. People who were absolutely sure of what they saw, but they were wrong.
Okay, let's talk about the knife. The prosecution's argument is basically Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the right one. The kid bought the knife, he used the knife. Simple. But then, juror number 8 reaches into his pocket and pulls out an identical knife. Bam. Now, that doesn't prove the kid is innocent, not at all. But what it does do is completely shatter the prosecution's big claim that this weapon was unique. And suddenly, there's a tiny crack of doubt.
And then, the ugly truth behind some of the jurors' certainty starts to come out. When juror 10 says this, it's clear his decision isn't based on facts at all. It's based on pure, ugly prejudice. And this is such a fundamental issue that in a real-world Supreme Court case, Peña-Rodriguez v. Colorado, the court actually ruled that if there's evidence of racial bias in jury deliberations, it can be an exception to the secrecy of the jury room. It was this landmark decision, really, to make sure that the Sixth Amendment's promise of an impartial jury is a real thing, not just some idea on paper.
And this is the crucial point, right? The arguments happening in that hot, stuffy jury room, they aren't just fiction.
They perfectly mirror real-life legal battles where flawed evidence and human bias have had absolutely devastating and irreversible consequences.
Just take a look at these real cases. You've got Anthony Ray Hinton, convicted because of supposedly unique ballistics evidence. You've got Kirk Bloodsworth, convicted based on 5 confident eyewitnesses, 5, and later cleared by DNA. These show just how dangerous unique evidence and witness certainty can be. But then, you look at the other side of the coin. Cases like Robert Durst or Lizzie Borden, where you could argue that focusing on doubt or jury prejudice led to some, let's just say, questionable acquittals. It's such a powerful reminder that the justice system can fail in both directions.
Let's just zoom in on Anthony Ray Hinton's story for a second. He was convicted in 1985. He wasn't exonerated until 2015. He spent 28 years on death row because the prosecution's entire case was built on unique ballistics that turned out to be totally wrong. That's the human cost. That's what happens when reasonable doubt gets ignored.
Okay, so let's jump to the end game. After every piece of evidence has been torn apart and put back together again, it all comes down to the final deliberation. You have 2 completely different ways of looking at the exact same set of facts. The prosecutor's side, voiced by the jurors still voting guilty, makes a powerful plea to emotion and just common sense. They're basically saying, hey, let's not forget the victim here. They call all the defense's theories science fiction and argue that sympathy has no place in the room. The evidence all points one way, and they demand a guilty verdict.
And then you have the defense's challenge, which is the complete opposite. It's not about emotion, it's an appeal to their legal obligation to cold, hard logic. The argument is simple. The witnesses are flawed. One couldn't have heard it, the other couldn't have seen it clearly. The unique knife isn't unique at all. And if even a shadow of a doubt exists, they have no choice. They are obligated to acquit. They demand a verdict of not guilty.
And at the end of the day, that's what this all boils down to. The play never actually tells us if the boy was innocent or guilty. It doesn't give us that easy answer. Instead, it leaves you with a much harder question, one that any of us might have to face one day if we're called for jury duty. So when you're the one in that box, where do you draw the line between certainty and doubt? How much doubt is reasonable when someone's life is in your hands? It's a question that gets to the very heart of what justice is, and it's one we all need to think about.